You're now tuned into the Fishburne Report, hosted by Graham Fishburne.
Here's a look at some of what's in the papers on this Friday morning. The other states that didn't think coronavirus was their problem, highlighted on the front page of the Daily News with this image of the Statue of Liberty and the headline, "In Your Phase." The paper pointed to Texas in particular as a place that reopened too aggressively. As we've been telling you, phase 3 of reopening in New York City now, likely July 6th. The paper's coverage says the city's recovery so far could be used as an example for the rest of the country. An announcement that may have gone under the radar yesterday, Governor Cuomo says 2 subway stops in Brooklyn will be named in honor of Medgar Evers, the civil rights activist who was killed nearly 60 years ago. The Franklin Avenue and President Street stops are right next to the campus of Medgar Evers College. His name will be added to those stops over the summer. A photo from South Korea on the front page of the Wall Street Journal this morning, soldiers carrying the remains of fallen soldiers to mark 70 years since the beginning of the Korean War. The Centers for Disease Control says antibody data points to a startling fact. Only about 1 in 10 COVID-19 cases in the U.S. has been identified, and around 90% of Americans have yet to be infected. This further shows that many people show mild or no symptoms when they get infected, but in that time they're probably still able to pass it on to vulnerable people. A journal review of Minnesota police records shows that since 2014, around half of the police officers who were either fired for misconduct or charged with crimes ended up back on the force. The journal says this is particularly common in Minneapolis, where George Floyd died at the hands of cops. Investment banker Felix Rohatyn is often credited as one of the people who helped to save New York City from bankruptcy in the 70s. He died last year. He had an extensive art collection. It's going up for sale at Sotheby's. His children say he was especially fond of paintings from the 18th century. Although he didn't like to show off his collection, he was a collector for pleasure, not for investment. There are some maps on the front page of the New York Times which really show how much the pandemic has shifted in the past 3 months. So the red markers indicate the number of people per 1,000 who had confirmed or likely coronavirus cases. This map on top takes us back to March when there was that big concentration right around New York City. Forward now to the past week, New York is mostly gray, and you see how many of those cases there are in the South and the Midwest as they see their flare-ups. A report below the fold shows that as soon as Bill Barr was sworn in as Attorney General, he made it a mission to undermine the cases that New York prosecutors were developing against Donald Trump's inner circle. A first step, asking Justice Department officials to come up with ways of questioning the conviction of Trump's former lawyer, Michael Cohen, on campaign finance violations, even though he had already pleaded guilty, had already been sentenced to prison time. The paper says this began a pattern of Barr attempting to influence prosecutors in New York, culminating, of course, last weekend with the firing of U.S. Attorney Jeffrey Berman. Your dentist will be more covered up at your next appointment. Dentists in the city trying to reassure patients it's safe to get back in the chair. Many will wear face shields and in some cases use laser technology instead of water spray to clean teeth. One in the East Village notes that changing clothes between appointments is a little bit like getting out of a spacesuit. We'll finish with this from the arts section. 5 New York stand-up comics who identify as non-binary. So they talk about handling the slow reopening of the city. They talk about the difficulty of explaining their gender to audiences unfamiliar with the concept. Jess Tom has a go-to pronoun joke. I like when people call me they. It makes me feel less lonely. Let's look at some of what's in the Friday papers.
Well, if I said it once, might as well say it again. If it's not one thing, it's bound to be another. But things are looking up in my city. I'm proud of you guys. Well, if I said it once, might as well say it again. If it's not one thing, it's bound to be another. But things are looking up in my city. I'm proud of you guys. Message to all sports fans, get your laptops, your smartphones, and your HD TVs ready because MLB and NBA is on its way back. Let's take a closer look.
There are 2 words in particular baseball fans have longed for months. Play ball! The Washington Nationals didn't get the opportunity to celebrate their 2019 championship amongst a sold-out crowd, and there were no standing ovations for new faces in big markets like Garrett Cole and Mookie Betts. But players are eager to return to action, and owners want to see their product on the field. And now that the financial situation between the two parties has been resolved, the biggest issue is player safety.
On opening day, it's about hope. We have hope.
Major League Baseball, like other sports leagues, will have to play without crowds for the foreseeable future. Despite this new normal, there's one thing every baseball fan can get on board with. It's finally time to play ball. It's going to be a 60-game regular season beginning in 1 month, players reporting in 1 week. The National League is going to use the DH, and every extra inning is going to begin with a runner on second base. So things are definitely going to be different, and it's not just going to be that there's no fans in the stands.
In the association, Pacers guard Malcolm Brogdon, the latest to test positive for COVID-19. Like the rest of the league, the Pacers began conducting testing on their players on Tuesday as the NBA prepares to travel to Orlando to resume the 2019-20 season. In a statement released by the Pacers, Brogdon said he's feeling well, but did not address if he has any of the symptoms associated with the virus. But just like other leagues, the pandemic continues to present some hurdles when we're talking about some of these restarts. The Kings had 3 players test positive for COVID-19, Buddy Hield, Jabari Parker, Alex Len. Denver's Nikola Jokic tested positive, and Serbia is still working his way on getting back to the States sometime next week. And Lakers' Avery Bradley deciding to sit out the Orlando restart, not wanting to risk the health of his family. All right, let's bring in our NBA Brain Trust coach as well, Avery Johnson, joining us this morning. And just want to get to it, Avery. Put you back in the coaching role a little bit here. This is something that no one has dealt with before. This is brand new. How difficult can this be, keeping players focused, let alone in a bubble?
Well, I think it's going to be difficult, but because of the era that we find ourselves in, players have so much access to all the different technology and online games and Facebook Live, and they have an opportunity to Zoom and keep in touch with their family members. So because of the access to all of the different levels of technology, I don't think it's going to be as much of a challenge to keep them focused. And then you also have to think about what level of teams and what caliber of teams are we talking about. If you're talking about the Los Angeles Lakers and the Los Angeles Clippers, the Toronto Raptors, the Milwaukee Bucks, those teams are trying to win a championship. They're trying to make history, especially in this atmosphere of COVID-19 and the way it's disrupted society. So those teams, the veteran teams, I don't think it's going to be hard to keep them focused.
Well, there you have it. I'll be watching just like you guys to see how it all pans out. Let's hope for the best.
New York Knicks are still in the market for a new head coach. Sports writer Greg Joyce takes a look at 11 likely candidates for the job. Former Bulls and Timberwolves coach Tom Thibodeau is considered the front-runner because of his playoff record and what Joyce calls a relentless work ethic. Other candidates include former Knicks coach Mike Woodson and Kenny Atkinson, who was let go from the Nets just 3 months ago.
For you horse racing fans out there, here's expert sports handicapper Graham Fishburne's picks for Belmont Park, June 26, 2020. The early pick 4. Good luck. Well, folks, thanks for tuning in. That does it for me. Make sure you check us out tomorrow. Hit that like button, subscribe, share the channel. And don't forget, if you feel like helping us out, the Cash App is $Graham Fishburne. Every donation counts and it's very much appreciated. Help us to keep these lights on. Never forget, the world is a playground. Let's enjoy it together.